Welcome to Module 4 and Week 9. During this week, we will be covering Chapter 9, Rights of Innkeepers, and Chapter 10, Guest Rights. First focus will be Rights of Innkeepers. So obviously throughout this course, we have spoken a lot about what we owe to patrons, what we owe to guests, and we do have rights as well as innkeepers or hoteliers. So we do have the right to exclude a non-guest. What does that mean? Whenever somebody comes to our property uninvited, we do have the right to ask them to leave. And that is where the term trespass comes into play. That is whenever we enter another person's property without the exclusive right or permission to do so. The only thing that we need to mention whenever that trespass rule applies is to ensure that we do not use excessive force whenever we're asking this patron or this trespasser to leave. All right, so we cannot use extra force more than what is required from us to defend ourselves. What do you think? Do we have the right to refuse a guest from coming to our property? And the answer here is a yes and a no type of deal. So we do have the right to refuse service whenever we, I will give you a couple of examples on that. But in general, whatever decision we make to refuse service needs to be based on actual non-discriminatory factors. So it cannot be because a person is from a certain race or the person is from a certain national origin, things of that nature. All right? To understand the terms properly, eviction, that is whenever we have a guest that has been occupying one of our rooms, but we have asked them to depart, or more like we're urging them to depart because they're not willing to do so on their own merit. Okay? What are the rights that we have? Whenever somebody had failed to pay their bill, we could start eviction proceedings. Whenever they're overstaying beyond the amount of time that we have initially agreed on. So imagine if I had a reservation for departure today, but today you're already sold out, and then I presume that I could just continue staying. So you do have the right to tell me that, unfortunately, I no longer have rooms available to continue your reservation. People that have ill reputation, intoxicated people that have a disorderly conduct, or sober with a disorderly conduct, people that are contagious or are a nuisance in terms of kind of sharing or spreading the illness with the rest of your guests. And people that could break the house rules. So let's say you have a rule to not have outside food and drink by the pool, but somebody is constantly doing so, and whenever you approach them to fix that issue, they decide not to do so and keep on going. So those are under some conditions under which we could evict a guest. Furthermore, we do have more rights. So if somebody had stayed on property but had chosen not to pay their bill, we could hold a lien, or we could kind of secure their property, their personal property, until they satisfy the debt that they have towards us. Defrauding, that's whenever a guest decides to cheat us out of the money that we're owed for services we have rendered. Meaning they get into a contractual agreement with us that they will pay us X amount of money for X amount of duration of stay, but then they fail to do so, so they do misrepresentation, and ultimately we suffer damages because of that. Larceny, that is whenever we have a theft of personal property, so something of the hotel could be removed. Theft of services, that is whenever a person uses our services, so hotel room, and they do plan to non-pay. Now, there are certain conditions where the rules of the court will side with the guest. And that's why I've put here the Red Cross example. Within your book, there is a very interesting example. A lady suffered a loss of her home, and she was under the impression that Red Cross will be covering her room because she was under negotiations or communications with them. Ultimately, she did share that information with the hotel property, and she ended up staying at the property. However, final decision for Red Cross was that they were not going to pay for the room. The lady left a balance of the room and simply left the room. Hotel now was stuck with the bill and decided to go after the lady for the amount that she owed for using of the services. The courts, however, said that she didn't commit fraud because she genuinely believed that her room was going to get paid from the Red Cross. Fraudulent payments is another way in which we could be cheated out of a payment, and that's whenever somebody possesses, let's say, a credit card or a stolen property with which they're trying to make a payment. So identity theft, obviously matching credit cards and picture IDs is very, very important for us in order to protect from any of those to happen. With the case of the Red Cross, what could we do? Obviously, we could have collected method of payment from the lady until she's able to clear up the items with Red Cross. Was she still liable for payment? Absolutely, just not under the defrauding option. Now, let's discuss some of the guest rights. So whenever guests registered into our property, they have the right to occupy the hotel room without disruption, meaning the intent that we agree on is that we are only going to provide this guest with the keys of that room. No other guest or person will be going to that room without the permission of the guest that checked in. Now, why do I say that? There are a couple of exceptions to that rule. Whenever there is a maintenance issue, we do have right to access that room. Whenever we believe that something, let's say a domestic dispute and our items are getting broken into, then we do have the right. But just for our own leisure and pleasure, we cannot keep on going in and out of the room, okay? Obviously, to clean is a possibility, and it's part of the contractual agreement that we will go and clean, so that is allowed. The right to privacy in a guest room. So the room will be free of any recorders, any cameras, and things of that nature. And we will be protecting the privacy of that guest, meaning I'm not going to tell anybody, oh, do you know that Brad Pitt is staying in room 305? Obviously, that is the expectation of privacy. They do have the right to be treated respectfully and to not be insulted or humiliated by hotel staff. Meaning what? Even if we have some kind of a disagreement with the guest, or everybody will be treated right. The right to be free from false arrest or detention without a cause. I will be discussing under what conditions we could give the police access to the room a little bit later. Credit card fraud is a hot topic. Obviously, the guests are providing credit cards to us, and they expect that the credit card provided to us will be handled with utmost care, meaning our staff members are not going to sell, copy, or use credit card information. Okay, they do have the right to be informed of fees before they're actually imposed. So if we have resort fees, if we have internet fees, if we have valet fees, all of those need to be mentioned prior to the guest registering. The right to have hotel mail properly handled is another one of the expectations of our guests. And within the activity, I do have an interesting case to share. As I mentioned to you, under certain conditions, we are to provide the police access to the room. But I just so wanted you to know, yes, in general, the guests could expect privacy in their room. They could expect that they will have a disruption-free stay. However, let's say I'm passing by room 305 and I could hear like breaking and loud noises and things of that nature, that will prompt me to enter, okay? When my property as a hotelier now is being jeopardized and it's being broken, then I do have the right to involve myself and enter the room. During that time, if I see something that is out of the ordinary or something criminally looking, I do have the right to call the police as well. Now, in general, if none of those cases exist and the police just shows up at your property asking you to see who is in room 305, they will have to provide with a search warrant, which a judge will figure out whether we'll give one of those to the police or not. But, you know, in general, prior to a judge issuing a search warrant, they would have taken into consideration evidence that the police gave to them that maybe there is a criminal activity happening in that specific room. Probable cause, that will have to exist in order for certain kind of accommodations to be made. So again, this will go together with the search warrant. Exclusionary rule, that is the rule that holds evidence obtained in consequence of a warrantless search, and it states that it's not admissible in court. Meaning I allowed the police to enter a room just because they asked me. Search warrant did not exist. They found narcotics. Those narcotics will be part of the evidence bag. However, they will become inadmissible in court because there was no actual search warrant that was issued for us to go and search that room. So a lot of interesting cases throughout those chapters. Please read it thoroughly.